I'd like to make a few remarks about the Oliver Stone movie, JFK, which I've recently bought on DVD. It's a movie I've seen quite a few times since it came out in 1991. I've read Jim Garrison's book, On the Trail of the Assassins, as well as the other book that is mentioned in the movie, which is Crossfire by a man named Jim Mars. A lot of people want to criticize the movie because they say it's basically a totally, fictionalized, sensationalized account of the Kennedy assassination. That Jim Garrison was a publicity seeker. My thoughts on that is this: Jim Garrison, to me, did a service to the American people in this way. When he put Clay Shaw on trial for the murder of the president, or conspiracy to murder the president, he did manage at least to convince the jury that there was a conspiracy to kill the president, and he also screened the Zapruder film in front of a courtroom full of people, which was an accomplishment, in my opinion. The events portrayed in the movie JFK do have some basis in fact. Lee Harvey Oswald, this is just my opinion, of course. Lee Harvey Oswald and David Ferrie and Jack Ruby did all know each other. I don't know where they're at on the internet, but I do believe that they are there. There are photographs of Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby, not necessarily Jack Ruby, but Dave Ferrie together. So they did have some kind of connection. They hit both Lee Harvey Oswald and David Ferrie were in the Civil Air Patrol. So they did have some association together. Now, can I prove, with anything else that they were involved in a plot to commit the murder of the president? No. But they did know each other. So there is the possibility that they were conspirators together, or they were somehow involved in the assassination. The character of X, Mr. X, in this movie was based on a man named Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty. I'm in the process. I've read some of his book. I can't remember what it is right offhand. You can go on Kindle and look it up. It's on there for a very good price. This man was basically, I'll say it, he was the main inspiration for the character of X, though the character of X had several inspirations. And a lot of the stuff, I think that all the stuff that the character X talked about in the movie was true. We all know that the CIA, and the CIA in particular, was involved in all kinds of foreign affairs throughout the 50s and the 60s, and before, probably, before the CIA was formed in 1947, I'm sure. There's a bunch of stuff going on there. Clay Shaw, aka Clay Bertrand, the man that Jim Garrison put on trial in New Orleans in 1969. Jim Garrison alleged that he was an employee or agent of the Central Intelligence Agency. This was staunchly denied by Mr. Shaw and his attorneys. About 6 years after the death of Clay Shaw, Richard Helms, who was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, admitted that Clay Shaw had been, to a certain extent, an employee of the Central Intelligence Agency. So Jim Garrison was correct. and asserting that Clay Shaw was associated with the CIA. This movie, JFK, did a huge favor to the American public. It resulted in the creation of the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act, which I have a video about that on my channel. It's from C-SPAN. It's about 3.5 hours long, but it's well worth watching every minute of it. This act resulted in the release of a few million government documents, or supposedly everything that the government could release. Whether they did or not, that's of course that's always open to question. But had it not been for that movie JFK, the case would not have regained the focus. It would not have regained the attention in the public eye that it did. In fact, it caused such a stir that when they were debating, to whether or not to create this act, Oliver Stone himself was called to testify before Congress, and it's in the video. He lays out his beliefs about what happened, who was involved in the conspiracy to murder the president. And during the filming of the movie, he admitted that during the filming of the movie that he was getting new information from various sources, and of course he would have to take that into account. And so it wasn't necessarily just his totally own personal take on it, I guess. He did use a huge amount of factual information and put it into the movie. As for my personal beliefs about I guess you'd say the plot of the movie, who was involved in the president's assassination, I will say that I'm more inclined to agree with what Jim Garrison said than to disagree with it, though I do have a few reservations about some of it. His claim that LBJ was involved in it, I'm kind of reluctant to totally conclude that he was, even though I have a strong feeling that he was involved in it. Clay Shaw, David Ferry, Jack Ruby, I do believe that there is a strong possibility that they had some kind of conversation to where they were involved in some way to assassinate the president. It's really hard to say for certainty. Too much time. There's been so much time that has passed by. So many people have said things. But in the final analysis of this movie JFK was a terrific movie. It did a huge service to the American public, and I do thank Oliver Stone for doing that. And those are my thoughts on JFK.